Good evening everyone. My name is Kashish Khan and I will be taking care of your social science class 9. I am back with another chapter. Before we start with today's class, let's check if my audio and my video is audible and visible. So I'll just have a quick look at if the class is audible and visible, and then we'll start with our chapter. I hope we're ready for the class. Just let me quickly have a look if this is working or not, and then we'll start our class. Yes? I think we're good to go. Alright guys, so today we are going to start with a very new chapter of our civics, of our political science. It is right in front of you. What is democracy and why democracy? And before we go ahead with this chapter, it is very important for us to understand that why democracy. But before we go into the why, we actually need to understand those few stories that democracy exactly is what. What do we mean by this word? Does a two-liner definition, does a three-liner definition explains us how a government should work? I don't think so. You know what guys, basically whenever we talk about a word and whenever we talk about its definition, maybe the definition could be true and explains the essence of the word, but with time it actually changes. So there's a very nice example of this exact word in your book as well, in your NCERT book as well. You might have not read it, but I've read it all, and it's a very, I must say, it's a very nice example to understand that sometimes the meaning of the word evolves with time. The meaning of the word changes with time. However, the word remains same, but many kinds and variety of definition gets attached to it. So for example, you know when computers were launched, when computers were first invented, it's in your book. When computers were first invented, students, what happened was, it was made for computing. It was made to solve mathematical questions. It was made to actually solve some questions and get our answers really quickly. But do you think in today's time we actually use computer only for that purpose? No. Now we use computer for, I'm live streaming with you guys, right? We use computers for videos, we use computers for studying, we use computers to make presentations, we use computers to make photographs, we use computers to have an online meeting. We use computers for a lot many things. So initially when computer was made, initially when computer was invented, the only reason it was invented was for computing and solving some very complex questions. But with time we changed. With time we evolved. With time we actually brought in the technology inside of the computer, and with time we understood that the computer may have different variety of tasks as not just computing and solving some questions. But the word remained same. Why? Because the word is attached to its essence. So the essence that we are talking about is that the computers actually made our lives easier in variety of reasons. Similarly, when we talk about democracy, we are not attaching democracy word with two-liner definition. This is the definition, and if any country is coming inside of this definition, if any country is stuck in this definition, then we'll call that country a democratic country. But do you really think that happens? No. Wherever there are democratic governments, all the countries are absolutely different. Now this is your homework for the end of the class, that when the class ends, you have to jot down all those countries that have democratic form of governments but are entirely different from each other. Yes, because even if we talk about India as a country, if we talk about other countries that have democratic governments, but not all the countries who have democracy work in the exact same manner. Why? Because democracy word is that essence that we are going to study in this chapter today. So this chapter is all about how democratic form of mindset and a democratic form of government actually completes, fulfills the aspirations of their citizens, and how it is better than other form of governments, and why is it better than other form of governments. This is what the chapter is all about. Now, before we go ahead in the chapter, I hope all your math, science classes are going really well. We have studied about French Revolution in the last class. This is going to be our next class on civics. What is democracy? Why is democracy? We will be completing this chapter in today's class, and we're going to make sure we understand it properly so that when you complete this session with me, you will have no doubts, and if you'll have any, there's always comment section open up for you. You can always jot down, pin down your comments, and I will get back to you with the answers as soon as I can. So how about we start our class and let's get ahead. Before I start the class, finally, I just want to quickly last time check if I'm audible and everything is visible. If anybody can quickly put down the chat for me, and then we'll be good to go. All right. I think we're good to go. So let's start with our chapter. So the first and foremost, what we have to understand is what is democracy. Let's have a two-liner definition and see whether all the democratic governments, whether whatever that we're going to study today fits inside this definition or not. And we're going to have a lot of stories. We'll study about China, we'll study about Pakistan, we'll study about Zimbabwe, we'll study about Mexico. We'll understand the stories of their governments. We'll even understand whether they follow the democratic structure or not. And if they do, how is it different from other country democratic structures, right? So let's go forward. First, so what is democracy? Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. So first and the foremost thing that you have to understand is when we talk about different form of government, let's say I'm talking about dictatorship, let's say I'm talking about monarchy, let's say I'm talking about democracy. Now when I talk about monarchy, what is monarchy? Monarchical form of government is where a king is the ruler of the country. And after that king, the son of the king becomes the next ruler of the country. And the hierarchy follows on, correct? When I talk about dictatorship, dictatorship is someone, a person who takes the authority of that country through power. Now it could be a military person, it could be some other ruler, it could be some powerful another person from another country only who has more power, more wealth, and had the audacity and the ability to rule over a particular country. So a dictator is someone who has power in his hands. When we talk, have you heard of Hitler? Was a dictator, right? So similarly, dictatorship is the sole authority, monarchical form of government is the sole authority, but democracy, here the catch is democracy is that form of government where we as citizens are deciding who we want us as our ruler, who we want somebody to take care of us, who we want that this person, this certain person should be making decisions for us because we trust him or her. Correct? So here it differentiates us. Now what we have to understand is the definition allows us to separate democracy from other form of government. Samjha? Easy? Understood? Now there are many examples here. These examples we'll study in detail and we'll start with story by story. And similarly through stories we'll understand what are the features we actually want to study about democracy. Now the first and the foremost question that comes here is, students, bacha, you have to understand here that a 4-marker question always comes from this chapter, and the favorite and the easiest one. What are the features of democracy? This is the main question that you'll have to study. Okay? Chalo, democracy is the form of government which rulers are elected by the people. Now, if you remember my French Revolution class, if you've seen lots of shorts and reel content on Buddy Education channel, you must have understood that these keywords are what making your definition, is what your definition is all about, is what your marks will be dependent upon. Yes, I have told n number of times that always focus on the keywords. It is very important for you to understand and remember the keywords. Yes, you may not remember the complete definition, but remembering the keywords, writing them down, making a 1-pager note at the end of every session. Whenever you have a session with me, make a 1-pager note and use that 1-pager note in the time of examination, because you will not be sitting down and reading the full chapter. You will not have time to have a 2-hour, 3-hour session on a YouTube. You will be requiring that 1-pager note. Okay? Chalo. So, what rulers are we talking about? What kind of elections are we talking about? And who are these people who are electing and choosing this leader, right? So these are the 3 questions that comes from this definition, that democracy is a form of government where rulers, what rulers? Elected, which people are electing? And by the people. So what people and what rulers and how. These three things we'll understand, and you'll understand this by the end of the chapter through variety of stories. So let's move ahead and see what are the first feature of democracy here. First, major decisions by elected leaders. Now, you have to focus on the word elected here. Why? Because if I talk about major decisions by leaders, now it could be dictatorship government also, it could be monarchical government also, because all the governments, whatever government that you know, have leaders, right? The only difference in democratic form of government is the elected word. Why? Because only in democratic form of government we have chosen our leader, whereas on the other side all the leaders were directly decided either by their own family or themselves, right? So the first keyword that we get here in the first feature of democracy is major decisions by elected leaders. I hope this part is clear. In a democracy, the final decision making power must rest with the people. So now whenever, have you heard in India there is a parliament, and then in a parliament there are two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and whenever there is a law that has to be passed, a law is first called as a bill, because there is a discussion by both the houses. Now both the houses will sit upon it, decide whether they want to go with that bill or not. If they say yes, if both the houses have the clear majority of saying yes, that bill becomes a law. So what are we talking about here in a democracy? The final decision is taken by the people. Now those two houses, all the people sitting inside those two houses are elected from which part? From different parts of the country. And who elected them? We elected them as people through voting. So I decided that on behalf of me, I want this person to be making decisions for me. Correct? So this is how all the leaders are chosen, and whatever final decision is taking place, the final decision taking power is in the hands of the people that are elected through us, right? Now this is what the definition was all about. Let's understand it through a story, that why in different countries this is not happening. Okay, so now as a country, Pakistan, I'll tell you the first story here. I'll tell you the story in a short form, and then we'll go one by one with the line, okay? Because students, you don't have to read everything that is written here. You just have to hear me out and see me and hear me out, because this PDF with annotations, with notes, you'll get after your class on a Telegram channel. The Telegram channel is called Buddy Education. The link will be there in the description box, so you can go ahead and access from there, okay? Alright, so now the story revolves around a person called Parvez Musharraf. He led a military coup. Now when I talk about military, he is a strong military person, right? Now what happens in 1999, he comes to Pakistan and he makes himself the supreme leader. He's like, I'm here now, I have power, I will kill you all if you do not listen to me, so you better listen to me, and I am the leader now. So this is what happens in Pakistan in 1999, this is happening, okay. Now what, here he doesn't stop, he officially calls himself chief executive of the country. So basically when there's a CEO of any country, and CEO of any company, big company, there's a CEO, right? So he becomes the CEO of Pakistan, okay. Now what happens, later he changed his designation that I am not feeling best calling myself CEO. So I'll call myself president now. So he later declares himself as president in 2002. But he doesn't stop there. He passes a referendum. Now here the important words come along. What is referendum? So referendum is a question that is asked to the people of the country, and if the people of the country says no, that will not happen. If the people of the country says yes, that will happen. So it's a referendum is an open question to the citizens of the country. So now Parvez Musharraf goes upon asking the citizens of the country that whether I should extend my time period for 5 years or I should stop. Now, because he has come through force, because he has come through power, you have to understand that people will say no. But miraculously people say yes. Why? Because maybe force might have been used, maybe blackmailing might have been used, who knows. So a referendum is passed and it gives him 5-year extension magically. I don't know how is that happening, guys, but yeah, it happened. So in August 2002, he issued a legal framework order, and that order gave him all the powers, all the rights. According to this order, the president can now dismiss any assembly. Magically he passes a referendum, magically gets a yes on 5-year extension. Now he dismisses all the parties and he takes over the complete country and decides that now he'll only rule the country. The work of the civilian cabinet is supervised by National Security Council. Now whatever the cabinet that sits, see, all these heavy words, you don't have to be overwhelmed that ma'am, these heavy words, how are we going to remember? Listen, we'll break down. The work of the civilian cabinet. What is civilian? Civil people is us people as a country, citizens. Cabinet is made by all those people who are elected by the citizens of the country. Earlier cabinet was making decision on the behalf of people. Now the cabinet is dismissed. Now we don't want you. And Pervez Musharraf has a good military team. So he brings in those people and makes them sit over them. So now it is supervised by National Security Council, and those Security Council had people who were friends with Pervez Musharraf. So technically all the leaders and all the people in power are now apparently friends with Pervez Musharraf. Okay. After passing this law, elections were held and Pakistan had elections, elected representatives have some powers. So they had elections, they were like, no, we'll give you powers but little. So they gave very little powers to other people, but the final power rests with the military officer and General Pervez Musharraf himself. So can we say that the rulers are elected by people in Pakistan? Can we say that? Do you think we can conclude? I'll just quickly check in the chat that can we actually conclude that here the power is in the hands of the people? Can we say that? Can we conclude? We cannot conclude. We cannot say that technically all the people elected in Pakistan are through the general citizens of the country. No, it happened because of the power that lied in the hands of few people, and that is why. Do we call this as democracy? No, we cannot call this as democracy, right? Moving forward with the second feature that we have here. The second feature here is a democracy must be based on a free and fair election, where those currently in power have a fair chance of losing. Now, I'll give you an example. We'll have a story later, but I'll give you an example. For example, there are two friends in the school and those two friends have a tug of war going on, or let's say an arm wrestle going on, and always one person is cheating and winning. Do you think that's fair? Because that person who's cheating, who knows that I'll to always win, so he never has this fear of losing. That's where democracy fails. In democracy, you should always remember that you might have a fair chance of losing. Fair chance that if you do not do well with the people, if you do not do well for the country, if you do not listen to the people of the country, you might not win in the next election. That's what democracy is all about. But here there's another story of why it is important to have that fear. So here's an example of China. Now again we'll have China as a small story. We'll go one by one, but I'll tell you the story. In China there's a party, and China has a party called Communist Government and Communist Party. Alright, in Chinese language it's called Kuangguo Remen Diabo Dawi. You don't have to remember this. I can't remember this. Okay, alright. Elections are held every 5 years. In every 5 years there are elections. Got it? Understood the story. That party's name is National People Congress, and it has the power. Whenever that party wins, that party only makes the president of the country. Understood? Now that party has how many members? That party has nearly 3,000 members from all over China. Easy? Understood. Now what goes wrong here? Goes wrong here that anybody who wants to become a member of this party has to take an approval of the National People Congress, which is the main party of China. Now why this sounds very strange, that why if I want to become a party member, and what if I don't want to become a member of that party, I want to become a member of another party, because you're saying that there are elections. If there are elections, there are two parties who are fighting. And if there are two parties they are fighting, let's say party number A, which is National People Congress, and party number 2, which is XYZ. What if I want to fight from the XYZ side and not from the National People Congress? Then no, that is not allowed. You have to take the approval of National People Congress even if you want to fight for XYZ party. Now something is wrong here, right? Exactly what you're thinking. The wrong thing here is all the other parties are also a part of National People Congress. So now National People Congress have no fear of losing only. Sounds strange, right? Sounds not very democratic, right? Exactly. Exactly what this is all about. Only those who are the members of the Chinese Communist Party or the 8 smaller parties who are also a part of this party only are only allowed to contest and stand in election. The government is always formed by Communist Party. Now you understood. So I'll tell you again. If we revise, there's a parliament called National People Congress. It has how many members? 3,000 members. Those 3,000 members only makes what? Only makes the president of the country. Now those 3,000 members are elected by the citizens of the country. Now if I want to be a part of 3,000 members, I will have to take an approval of the Communist Party. But I don't want to take the elections on the basis of Communist Party. I want to stand from other side. But even if I want to stand from the other or opposition side, I will still have to go to Communist Party for approval. Which technically sounds wrong, which technically means that Communist Party is only going to win. And it's only Communist Party which is powerful, not the other parties. So technically, Communist Party will never have the fear of losing, which means it does not have the democratic spirit attached to it. And that is why democracy means that any party who is ruling must have a fear of losing in the next elections. Only then they will perform well. I hope you understood this part of the story as well. Let's go forward with another story. We have another story. So now there's a country called Mexico who earned independence from Spain in 1930. Now what happens, there's a party in Mexico that holds election and elects president. Now that country has never been under a military or dictator rule. Okay, this disclaimer is given to us because what's about to come in the next part is interesting. But until 2000, every elections, magically since 2000, all the elections, whatever it is happening and whatever it is happening, all the elections are through a party and only that party always wins. And what is the name of that party? Institutional Revolutionary Party. You must be looking at this and saying, ma'am, it starts with PRI, but it's opposite. Why? Because maybe in Spanish, it starts with the opposite way, that is why. Okay? So PRI is Institutional Revolutionary Parties, no military, no dictatorship, no monarchy, but always one party is winning. How is that possible? Something is definitely fishy and wrong. Now let's see what is fishy and wrong here is. So the company uses dirty tricks and malpractices. Now what happens is, a lot of party members who are actually standing up in the elections, they go to school and they blackmail the teachers of the school that if you will not force your students to vote, if you will not basically not force the students to force your parents, because children cannot vote, right? So force parents to vote for PRI, and if the parents fail to vote for PRI, we will kick all your students out of the school. And if all the students goes out of the school, the teachers will lose their job. And if teachers will lose their job, the school will fail. And if the school fails down, nobody will have any money, guys. So that is why the PRI used lots and lots of dirty tricks. This is one of the trick. Other trick was media largely ignored the activities of opposition parties. They changed the voting booth in the end minute. Sometimes the polling booths were shifted from one place to another. Sometimes the machines were fit into the car and were taken away, magically disappeared, because they were disappeared from exactly those spots that they knew will not vote for PRI, right? So 2000 say there's no dictatorship, there's no monarchy, there's no military rule. Magically only one party is winning. But now we know the real reason. So here, do you think that it justifies the spirit of democracy, that there's a fair chance of losing, fair chance of winning? It doesn't. So we understand the second feature. The first feature was all the rulers are elected by the people, and the final decision taking power is in the hands of the elected leaders. The second is, whenever there's election, second feature of democracy, whenever there's election, the winning side should always have a fear of losing in the next elections, okay? Shall we guys move on to the third feature? I'll quickly check the chat in order to see if there's any doubt, and if you're good to go, we'll move. Hi Gunjan. Okay, I think we're good to go. Alright, now let's go forward with the third feature. The third feature is one person, one vote, one value. Simple and easy with one story. What do we understand here? That if I am going out for voting, if my friend is also going out for voting, my vote will also have one value, my friend will also have one value. I can only vote once, my friend can only vote once. It cannot happen that if I belong to a certain caste, if I belong to a certain religion, if I belong to certain ethnicity, if I belong to certain gender, if I belong to certain age, any of these reasons or XYZ reasons, I cannot have more than one vote or less than one vote. I can only have one vote. It doesn't mean I can have 0.5% or 0.5 of that one vote. No. Your vote will have only half value, or I cannot even ask that my vote, give my vote more value, right? My vote and others' vote, if they belong to the same country as I am, we all have one value for our one vote. Understood? There is a story behind it that Saudi Arabia, Estonia and Fiji. So these are the three countries that we have a story about, and the first one is Saudi Arabia. Women do not have the right to vote. Here they don't have only. End of discussion. So no value only because there is no vote, right? Estonia, Russian minority find it difficult to right to vote. Why? Because in Estonia there are Russian people as well living. Now what happens? Why is there a difficulty? There's this constant pushing, there's constant blackmailing that if Russian people, if Russian community is going out for vote, there are a lot of dirty tricks and malpractices happening that they are forced to vote for a certain party. And whenever this happens, they generally feel that it's better not to vote only. Because if they'll have to vote, they'll have to end up voting for people that Estonian people want. So it's better not to vote. This is second example. And third example is Fiji. Now Fiji is an island nation where electoral system is such a way that all the indigenous Fiji has more value than the people who belong from India. Now at the time of independence of India, if you remember when there were Indian independence from Britishers, a lot of Indian people, Indian community went to work on Fiji Islands, and when they went, they settled there. And since there, their families have been settled there. So now these people, all the Indian Fijian people do not get their value of the vote as much as the indigenous who are the real actual people of Fiji. So this another problem. These are the three examples that made us understood that not in these countries, we are not able to justify this sentence. What does that sentence mean? In a democracy, each adult, I'm talking about adult here because only they get to vote. Each adult citizen must have one vote and each vote must have one value. Democracy is based on a fundamental principle of political equality. Now what do we mean by political equality? That whatever caste, religion, gender, race, ethnicity, color, whatever you have, if two people belong to the same country, their vote should have equal value, which is one value, and they're allowed only one vote. Okay, all right. I'll just quickly check if my mic is adjusting. I'm feeling it's adjusted. Yes. I'll just adjust this once again. Yes. Good to go. Alright, so this becomes our third feature of democracy that tells us that in these countries, people do not have one vote and those one vote do not have one particular value. Got it? Now, let's go to the fourth feature of democracy. Rule of law and respect for rights. Now, I understand that this is the most complex feature, right? But we'll first understand the story. I'll tell you why. You will understand the respect for rights here with this story. Now, Zimbabwe is a country that actually gained independence from the white authority. What is white people? Or have you heard of Black Lives Matter? Have you heard of racism being the biggest reason why a lot of African nations couldn't prosper? You all know that, right? So Zimbabwe is one country. The country has been ruled by ZANU-PF, the party that led the freedom struggle. Now at this time in 1980, the country got final independence, and at that time of independence, there was only one party that was ruling, which is ZANU-PF. And the leader of this party was Robert Mugabe. right? Now, why is he important? All the people from those time period were extremely inspired and were in the awe of Robert Mugabe. Why in the awe of Robert Mugabe? Because Robert was that person who led the struggle of independence. Robert was that person who swiftly sent all the authoritative people outside of the country, who was the person who actually gained independence for their citizens. Now, whenever such a thing will happen, you will always look up to your leader, right? And you would want that leader to always support you. You would want that leader to take decisions for you. Similar thing happened. All the citizens were extremely inspired and impressed by Robert Mugabe's action, and they were like, we want Robert Mugabe only as our final leader. Exactly that happened. Elections have been held regularly and was always won by ZANU-PF. President Mugabe is popular, but now greediness took over. Humbleness went away. People like Robert Mugabe was not able to stay grounded for a longer period of time. And that is why he started using unfair practices. Now, what could have been the reason of using unfair practices, students? There could be a reason that over time, there were more popular leaders. Over time, people got really inspired by Robert Mugabe and made him the ideal of it. With time, what happened was, a lot of people must have seen Robert Mugabe's popularity and wanted to become like him. And because there were so many youth also must be coming like Robert Mugabe, so Robert Mugabe must have felt that if he doesn't win, he will lose all his power, and that is why he might have used unfair practices. So, for example, over the years, the government changed several times. The powers he changed several times. Whenever he felt that his power is lessened, he used to change the rules. Whenever he felt that there is a certain community who is not supporting him and his ideas, he used to change it in a minute, right? So, public protests and demonstrations also took away, but he banned all the media. He used television as the medium of showing his power. What he did was, he used the television, banned all those social media channels and all those channels that talked in opposition of him, or talked badly of him, or talked not in support of him. So, whenever that happened, he banned all the news channels, he banned all the medias, he censored all those channels and only pushed those channels that spoke highly of him, right? So, these are the independent newspapers, but the government harasses these journalists who go against it. So, there was constant blackmailing, there's harassment, there's constant bullying of the people who spoke loudly against Robert Mugabe. So, all these reasons actually led Robert Mugabe to be a popular one. Once a person who was so great, once a person who had so much power, once a person who was an ideal to a lot of people, once a person who led the freedom struggle, now actually used unfair practices to control his power, actually used unfair practices to continue his power. That's actually sad, guys. That's actually sad. So, the example of Zimbabwe shows that even though popular leaders and popularity might have been approved, but popular governments can also be undemocratic. Absolutely. Popular leaders can also be autocratic. I mean, with time they can change their mindset. Absolutely. If we wish to assess a democracy, it is important to look at the form of elections. So, you understand, even though we are not talking about monarchical governments here, even though we are not talking about dictatorship here, but what we understood is, even though it is democracy, but they were not following the democratic rule per se, right? So, this is what we have understood as the features of democracy. Now, to summarize the features, let's quickly see. The rulers elected by the people take all the major decisions. Democracy or no democracy? Yes. Elections offer a choice and fair opportunity? Yes. But did it happen in the case of China? No. Why? Because there was only one party, Communist Party, and everybody had to take approval of that party. This choice and opportunity is available to all the people on equal basis. Yes, according to democracy, correct, but we understood another feature. Do you remember that feature I told you that in Saudi Arabia, women are not allowed to vote? In countries like Estonia, Russians are not have the equal value. In Fiji, the Indian Fiji do not have the equal value. So, even though we have that, but the choice and opportunity is available on the equal basis. That is a democratic feature, But we understood the story. This exercise of choice leads to a government limited by basic rules of constitution and citizen rights. Even though popularity can make a leader really famous over time, but that person can also choose a different path, a negative path. I mean, once, let's say I gain a popularity by singing, even though I sing really bad. I'm not even a bathroom singer, guys. I'm that bad in singing. But let's say I do miraculously great in singing. And with time, I show a lot of tantrums and attitude that I will not sign up this, I will not sign up that, I need more money. Nobody will give me work after a point of time, right? So it's always, always, always important to stay grounded. Always important to stay humble. You know your power, you know your confidence. But it should never come at the cost of other people, right? Moving forward, so now we don't have to only talk about democracy is the best, democracy is the best. Let's also understand that whether there are arguments against democracy, and even if there are arguments against democracy, why are we still choosing democracy is the question that we have to think about. Because there will be good and bad sides to everything. There will be good sides to monarchy, there will be bad sides to monarchy, there will be good sides to dictatorship, there will be bad sides to dictatorship. There will be good sides of democracy, there will be bad sides of democracy. But it is in our hands, in the hands of people, it is in our mind that we have to decide whether the bad is really bad or we can manage with that. We can manage and we can correct our mistakes. That's what democracy offers. And that is why even though there are a lot of mistakes about democracy, there are a lot of arguments against of democracy, we still choose this form of government because it's better than other form of governments. Noted? Alright, first, and this is I relate with it. Leaders keep changing in democracy, this leads to instability. Absolutely. For one, we have one leader. After 5 years, if we do not like that leader, we'll make them lose and we'll choose another leader. Easy? Yes. That leads to instability. We'll understand the good reasons later, okay? Second reason, democracy is all about political competition. Absolutely. We have seen the unfair practices of Mexico, we have seen the unfair practices of Zimbabwe, which shows that people can go really low in order to win. Yes. So many people have to be consulted. Absolutely. Example, when a bill has to become a law in our country, India, there are two houses, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. Now, a bill can take over years to become a law, which means until we have a clear majority, until there are absolute best decision taken, it takes a lot of time and a lot of people to actually sit upon that one particular bill and turn them into a law. So yes, a lot of people have to be consulted. Elected leaders do not know the best interest, right? We look up to a leader, but that leader has to take care of so many citizens. So that leader might not know the interest of all the people. He might understand the outline structure of it, but he or she may not understand that what 500 people want. He may be understanding, he or she may understand that 2 people want this, I'll do this. But a person does not have a bandwidth to understand the interest of all the people, right? That part I understand. I think you also. Democracy leads to corruption, absolutely. In order to win, you will stoop down to any level. So you'll give money that please vote for us, we'll give you money, bribery, absolutely. Ordinary people do not know what is good, absolutely. Sometimes when we talk about that each adult has a right to vote, not all adults are literate. So sometimes there is peer pressure, sometimes we are doing what others are doing. So let's say I am a literate person, I am going for an A party vote. 2 people from my own village are not literate enough, but they are following me that, oh, Kashish Ma'am is doing this, I'll also do this. No matter whether that's good for them or not, right? So these are the arguments I completely agree that these are against democracy, yes, but we are still choosing it. Why? Because there are bigger and better reasons behind why we need democracy, right? I'll just quickly check in the chat. There's a message I think is coming, so I'll just quickly see if is anything related to any question. I can't open my chat, guys. I'll check later. Okay. Alright guys, let's go forward with for democracy. Now democratic government is better because it's more accountable. Exactly the reason that we understood here. What is the reason we understood that so many people have to be consulted? Fewer chances that mistakes will happen. So now even though we took years, even though we took months, correct? We took lot of months to actually convert a bill into the law. But whenever that law came out, it was particular. It was for all. It made sense. Why? Because there were so many people involved that we saw all the variety of diversity in it. We understood the ethnicity reasons, we understood the gender reasons, we understood race reasons, we understood whether it will impact the minority or majority, whether it will cater to all kinds of citizens, whether it will meet the demands of the people, whether the population will be happy. We considered all the factors. We brought different people from different states to make decision for us. And when the decision came out, it was accountable. That is why even though a lot of people are consulted, it is still accountable. Second, democracy improves the quality of decision making. Absolutely. Since so many people are considerate enough to understand about one decision, the chances of having an error becomes really less. Why? Let's say I'm a dictator and I take a decision. I take decision, there are 100 people in a country, I take a decision. The 50 people are absolutely happy that, wow, Kashish has taken a great decision. But the other 50, they're not. Why? Because my mind did not think of both the directions. Now, let's say 10 people are sitting with me and we are taking decision for 100 people. Now, those 10 people will brainstorm, they will decide what is good for the citizen, what is not, and then they will take a decision, which might not keep 100 people happy, but definitely will keep 90 people happy. So, 90 is much greater than that of 50, right? So, the quality is better. Democracy provides a method to deal with differences, absolutely. Since there are so many, before a final decision is taken, already itni ladai ho chuki hai. There are so many fights already taken place before that final thing is coming out. So, there is lesser chance of conflicts. Democracy enhances the dignity of citizens. Yes. So, whenever a final argument is coming out, final decision is coming out, it is made in keeping the mind of all the people. So, all the citizens are nearly happy, right? So, here what we understood is, broader meanings of democracy will come back, but what we understand this from this chapter is, whenever we are talking about democracy, whenever we are speaking about democracy, there may be a lot of arguments against it. It is not the perfect form of government, but it is a better form of government. It may have its own problems, own issues, own conflicts, but we always still have a chance to rectify our mistakes in democracy, to always change something that we don't like, to always question something we don't like. Other governments may not give us that kind of leverage, but this definitely does. Now, if we talk about broader meanings of democracy, modern democracies involve such a large number of people that it is physically impossible, absolutely. Do you remember I told you that how a democracy, initially how a computer word was used, later the essence changed? Exactly. The word for democracy, the essence for democracy also changed over time, because earlier when democracy came, population was really less. Now the population is too big in lot of countries, right? So because the population is extremely high, it is impossible to go to every person, hey, we are making this decision, yes or no. Hey, we are making this decision, yes or no, no, na. That's why we have fewer people to take decision for us. And those fewer people come to power only through voting. And that voting is one person, one vote, one value, right? Even if they could, the citizen does not have the desire or skills. Absolutely. I mean, I am a social science teacher. Another of my friend is some other subject teacher. He or she, if it's a maths teacher and I am a social science teacher, I am not supposed to know everything about math. And that person might not know anything about social science. Exactly. Not everybody can rule, not everybody can form a government, not everybody can decide what's best for the people. That's why we vote. That's why we decide for fewer people to take decisions for us. And which is why democracy is democracy, and democracy is better than other form of governments. Now, when we conclude this chapter, we understand that democracy is that form of government where leaders are elected by the citizens of that particular country. A democracy can have broader meanings to it, such as free and fair elections, such as all the power in the hands of the people elected through the citizens. Everyone has one value, one vote, one value. All the people are coming to power through fair means of elections. No corruption, no bribery, right? So this is what the democracy entails. This is what this chapter encompasses. This is a very easy chapter. I mean, literally the easiest chapter in your 9th class. You just have to go through it once again. Make a one-pager note during exam time and you're good to go. You know this chapter. This is absolutely an easy chapter. We will soon be seeing each other in the next class. Till then, अच्छे से पढ़ो, nicely, be on your toes with your studies. work hard, study smart, and I'll see you in the next class. Good night. Bye bye.